Oh yeah, you read that right. This week we're doing Diddy Kong Racing, but there's gonna be something a little bit different on this channel. You're gonna get glitches from Son of a Glitch himself, beta elements from Beta64 himself, and of course, boundary breaking from your main man, She Says. Something like this doesn't happen all that often because it's so difficult to do, but thanks to how incredibly awesome these two other gentlemen are, we were able to pull it off. And with that said, let's get going. So of course, some of the things I always have to check first are the things that give you absolutely no camera control whatsoever. And here on the character select screen, I had to see if there's anything worth hiding. Well, one of the things I learned immediately is that apparently all of the textures stick to the screen depending on where the game's camera was last left off, which of course is not ideal, but at least here on the character select screen, it's all left off to the side. One of the crazy things I found while trying to zoom out the track is that when you drive too close to walls, the game actually creates a black wall to mask anything else that the player might be able to see by clipping the camera through it. And this is not something I typically see. Normally, that level of care and consideration is never really shown in video games. There's usually a guided effort to make sure the camera never goes through the wall, not have a fail-safe for when it does. So level of detail is something that's been used in 3D games for quite a while now, and it was used a lot in Nintendo 64 games. Here in Diddy Kong Racing, there's like 4 levels of detail for every single driver in the game. When the drivers are going right past your character, they're at full level of detail because the game wants you to see as much detail as they put the effort into. But then as the driver gets further and further away, the number of polygons on that character becomes less and less and less, to the point where it's just basically 4 polygons without anything in the front because your character will never see the front, so why not?
Son of a glitch. Diddy Kong Racing, the N64 classic with more animals than you can shake a stick at. It's also got a couple of mind-blowing glitches too. So you're speeding through a course in first place and then this happens, you get a crooked car. Now while it's pretty rare for this to happen, it pretty much kills your race there and then. But this glitch isn't just exclusive to the races, it can also happen in the hub world too. It's more than likely this glitch is caused by the behavior of physics on slopes and such. And the camera also becomes skewed too, so I guess we're fresh out of luck on this one. This is probably the only game-breaking glitch you'll experience in normal gameplay, but here's something useful you can try out. During a race and using a car, repeatedly tapping the A button is actually slightly faster than just holding the A button. Here's a comparison. Check out our speed in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Holding the A button, we barely reach 60. Even flat out, 60 is the fastest we go. Now repeatedly tapping the A button 4 to 5 times a second, we go over 60, closer to 70. It might not seem much visually, but this small speed increase adds up, and you'll find winning races a lot easier using this trick. Here's yet another glitch that'll help you out. You'll notice in races with the Guardians of the Island, they always set off before the race officially starts, putting you at a disadvantage. But for some reason, in the race between Bluey the Walrus, pressing the start button before the course map appears causes him to lag, allowing you to get a fair start in the race. But it seems this glitch only works on Bluey and not the other Guardians. Also in Bluey's race, there's a cool but completely useless out of bounds glitch you can try. Once the race starts, head to the left side of the starting line, and using this slight incline, press the R button to jump up onto a ledge. Now follow the ledge around and you'll be able to move freely from here. Now just keep heading down the track and you'll go through this mountainside and fall into the void below. Sadly, you won't fall towards the finish line. Instead, you'll be sent back to the starting line, which is default whenever the game corrects an error such as falling out of bounds. Getting out of bounds in tracks is a good way to win races or achieve ridiculous lap times. A good one to try that's easier than some out of bounds glitches in other tracks is in treasure caves. At the start of the race, head for the zipper on the right of the track, and if you get a good angle, aim to go downwards and then immediately perform a roll. Now bear in mind, this may take some practice. The speed from the zipper and the added speed of the roll push you under the invisible wall and then out of of bounds. Once you're out of the track, you have to loosely follow the track around for the lap to count, and not doing so will cause the wrong way error to appear. Also, with the textures being one-sided, not to mention how the areas load, it's kinda hard to see where you reside throughout the race. So try not to go back in bounds and you're good to go. Okay, now we're really gonna break the game. There's a way to get out of bounds on the main island hub world, and doing so will allow you to race Wizpig from the very beginning of the game before you've even collected a single balloon. To set up this glitch, we use a plane and fly away from the lighthouse at the beach. With enough distance between you and the lighthouse, turn around and then fly back towards it, keeping to the left of the lighthouse. On the approach, fly downwards at an angle of about 45 degrees and perform a roll. And if you've got the timing of the roll just right, the plane should now be pushed under the lighthouse. Be sure not to press the A button to accelerate at this point, as you'll be pushed back in bounds. Instead, simply glide along, and once you're on the other side of this wall, you're free to fly as normal. From here, it's a straight shot to the first Wizpig race loading zone. And if you've ever had trouble beating Wizpig, remember that tapping the A button is a lot faster than holding the A button. You are welcome.
In 2007, a YouTuber by the name of Alanar Windblade uploaded a German VHS tape with promo videos of various Nintendo 64 games. One of these just so happens to be Diddy Kong Racing. I went through all of the footage myself and noted quite a few differences between the VHS and the final game. So starting from the beginning, we've got the entire intro of the game with no cuts and no voiceovers, something that I thought was a myth. But no, the intro is completely intact, but sadly, it's mostly the same. Mostly. At the very start, when Diddy and a couple of his pals ride in on various vehicles, Diddy in the VHS gets an extra sound, taking away Pipsy's, and Timber doesn't even bother saying anything at all. Take a listen. From that point on, it's all the same until we reach Banjo. Quite a few changes here. If you know Diddy Kong Racing at all, you should notice at the end when Banjo hits Crunch, the name appears as Crash. Now why the change? Well, some people think it's because it sounds like Crash Bandicoot. Whether or not that's actually the real reason, I couldn't figure out, but it is entirely possible. Also, as far as sound effects go, there are two changes when Banjo hits Crunch. One, Banjo's voice is missing in the VHS when hitting him, and two, Crunch's voice sound effect is played before getting hit in the VHS, while the final plays it after. Take a listen once again. At this final scene, the only change I could find is that Wizpig and Diddy's name text is missing, which is an interesting thing to leave out, seeing as Wizpig is the main villain and Diddy is the main character. They just must have not added it in yet. The title screen has a couple of cool differences that should be fairly obvious. That would be the logo and the fact that there's text on the screen that says version 1.964. It's not every day you see the version number of a build in early footage. The only other time I can remember seeing it is when I created my video on Little Big Planet, but I digress. Going into adventure mode, you're giving a nice cinematic that's exactly the same as the final game. However, when Taj appears, the camera is zoomed out more in the VHS. The hub world though, not even close to being the same. There's a point in the footage where the player is racing Taj around the island in a plane, so we get a very good look at everything. So let's compare the vast differences, shall we? But before we begin with the layout, you should know that the player in the VHS is going to be collecting rare coins instead of Nintendo 64 flags in this island race. In fact, the player will be collecting a lot of rare coins in almost all of this footage we'll be looking at. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Alright, let's get started. At the beginning, both the VHS and the final version seem the same. I mean, both have the same lanterns after all. But just wait. There you go. Instead of coming out in a winter wonderland, you are now in an early snowflake mountain, which neither has snow nor flakes. Keep going straight and you'll eventually arrive at the snowy part of Snowflake Mountain. Fly under a few objects and you'll reach the tropical part. Now fly to the left, and finally, the final game and VHS footage match up again. The footage cuts here, but from the last frame it seems that the rest was going to be the same. Probably. I mean, I can't say for certain about that part, but what I can say for certain is that Dino Domain had a big change too. To preface, in the final game, to reach Dino Domain, all you have to do is go up this ramp and you're there. But in the VHS tape, there's a whole new area for the place, complete with its own little ramp.
Hey, she says, I want more boundary breaking. Well, let me help you out with that. We actually have 2 more videos in a playlist in the video description and on the screen right here, where you can watch me do boundary breaking on Donkey Kong Country Returns, Donkey Kong 64, and Donkey Kong Country. This playlist will take you to the other 2 collaborators' channels, so you can check more of them out and check more of me out. And if they left a good impression on you, make sure you hit that subscribe button while you're there.